Hello, everybody, and welcome to our leadership lesson for today. My name is Daniel with Aspire Global Leadership, and today we will have a spiritual aspect, if you may, of what we will be looking at in terms of leadership. Just because earlier in the day I was preparing for Bible study, and we looked at a very well-known parable about the tenants. And there is a quote there that resonated with me that says, the stone that the builders rejected has become a cornerstone. So that made me start wondering about what leadership lessons can we learn from a cornerstone. What exactly is a cornerstone to start off with? And why was this cornerstone rejected? Now, there is an unverified story, so don't quote me on that, that says that there was this building that was being built sometime somewhere in Israel. And the stones that they were using used to be made from the quarry and brought to the building site ready. And there was one stone that the guys who were hewing the stones, who were shaping them, who were sculpturing the stones had said was not worth anything. But the builders had gone through all the stones that had been brought to the site, and they couldn't find one which would be a cornerstone. And we will talk about what a cornerstone is here in a few minutes. So they finally went to the quarry themselves, and when they found that stone, they said, that's it, that's the one. Now, as I said, that story is not verified, so don't quote me on that. Don't take that as something that factually happened. It could have not. But with that being said, what exactly is a cornerstone? Now, from my experience and from where I grew up, I was able to experience a house, a stone house, as well as a brick house being built. And there is this stone that's put at the corner. No wonder it's called a cornerstone. And that's what gives the whole building symmetry and structure, because from that stone right there, it has to be laid the right way. It has to be completely perfect. And the builders got to great lengths, whether they use the plumb line or the plumb bob, depending on where you grew up in and how you look at it, or the spirit level. They have to make sure that it is straight, it is perfect, and it is set just the right way. After they do that, then all the other stones, the rest of the courses, the rest of the levels of that house will be based on that single stone. So that cornerstone is the most important, and you have to make sure that you have set it correctly. Now, with this story that we were looking at, this parable that we were looking at, there is a stone that the builders rejected, but it ended up being the cornerstone. So what do we learn from that? We have 3 lessons that we will look at from there. Lesson number 1, do your due diligence. What are you researching on? What is the 1 or 2 or 3 big decisions that you're about to make? Have you done your research on it? Or will you spend so much time going through so many aspects, going through so many things, only to come back and realize that what you wanted was at your backyard because you did not do your due diligence, like these builders who rejected the one stone that became the most important of all. Do your due diligence. If you've ever dealt with a realtor or anybody who does any type of brokerage, especially in real estate terms, the one thing they always tell you is to do your due diligence. And you actually have to pay some due diligence fees for them to do that due diligence for you. That's when they look at everything. Make sure that you don't have any surprises coming your way later. But if you don't do that, then you cannot blame anybody later for anything that you did not know, or anything that happens later that becomes a stumbling block, no pun intended. So, lesson number 1 in leadership: do your due diligence, do your research. Make sure you know everything in and out. How many of you have gone to an interview but you do not know anything about the company that you're interviewing with? How many of you have a client that you want to rope in, that you want to earn business with, but you don't even know anything about them? One of the things that makes people want to know more about you, that makes people want to connect with you, wants to make people finally do business with you, is finding that common ground. You cannot find common ground if you do not do your research. Maybe you went to the same school. Maybe you enjoy the same things in life. Maybe you have the same kind of hobbies. Maybe you share a sports team, or you share a love of a certain activity. If you don't do your research, you will never know that. So, lesson number 1, do your due diligence. Number 2, do not despise, because looks can be deceiving. I'm sure we all know the saying, don't judge a book by the cover. Now, is the cover important? Of course. But what's even more important is what's inside there. And when you do your due diligence, then you will not make your decision based on first impression. And yes, it is said that the first impression is the lasting impression. But unless you dig deeper, sometimes the best things in life come packaged in a way that you did not expect. How many times have you met somebody and once you get to know them, you say, I was mistaken about you. I was wrong about you. Oh, when I met you, I did not know you could do this, or I did not know this about you. I will go ahead and invoke my pastor from Kansas, Pastor Ben. There's a time we were talking and he said, you know, when I came to meet you, I did not know that you can talk as much as you do. Because according to many people, I come across, as soft-spoken. But once you get to know me, you realize that the opposite is true. Now, I like to identify as an introvert. I like to identify as soft-spoken. So let's keep it that way. But lesson number 2, always remember that looks can be deceiving, so do not despise. And finally, number 3, don't miss the bus. These guys missed the bus because they despised the stone that finally became the cornerstone. And by the time it became the cornerstone, other people were actually the ones who built that building. That's a story that we will delve deeper into. So if you're in the North Carolina area, you can come to church for Bible study, and we will talk more from a spiritual aspect of that. But don't miss the bus. It's okay to admit that you were wrong. It is okay to change your mind and own up to it. That's what these guys did not do. A few days ago, actually on Monday, I was privileged to listen to someone by the name Guy Kawasaki, who used to work with Steve Jobs, and he was talking about some of the lessons that he learned from Steve Jobs. And one of them was, it's okay to change your mind. The example he gave was in 2007, when the iPhone came out, Steve Jobs said that the iPhone platform is very important and the security is so important, and I'm paraphrasing it big time here, that it cannot be opened to external developers. In other words, all the apps, everything with the iPhone had to come from Apple. And the industry experts went and said, oh my gosh, he is right. It is true. Security is important. In 2008, the same Steve Jobs went out and talked about how there is need to open up the platform for developers. And the experts ran and said, oh my God, he is true. He's right, rather. And the lesson there was, it's okay to change your mind. Because if you don't change your mind, you will miss the bus. Yesterday's truth may be different from today's truth, but it is still the truth. It is okay to change your mind. So as we wrap up, the three things are: do your due diligence, do not despise, because looks can be deceiving, and don't miss the bus. It is okay to change your mind. Now, you cannot be someone who changes your mind every day. You have to be consistent. You have to follow a certain mantra. In business, you have to keep evolving. If you do not evolve with the times, you will miss the bus. We always talk about Kodak moments with photos, but right now Kodak is nowhere to be found because they did not change with the times. Blockbuster was the biggest thing, the best thing that ever happened a few years ago. And funny enough, if you look at my wallet, I probably need to declutter. I still have a Blockbuster card. But Blockbuster is nowhere to be found because Netflix came along, brought this revolutionary way of renting movies, and everybody laughed at them. Now look where Netflix is, and look where Blockbuster is. It is okay to change your mind. You can change the route, but don't change the destination. You can change the way you get to the end. You can change the means, just don't change the end. And as it is said, the end justifies the means. So those are the lessons for today. For a spiritual aspect of the same, join us later on at Bible study today as we look at the parable of the tenants, and that's where you find the quotes that the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Thank you very much, and we will talk again soon. Thank you.